Good day, you sexy internet travelers. Faley here, and today we gonna talk about episodes 2 and 3 of Violet Evergarden. So let's get to it. So we start episode 2 with a very indirectly informative scene. We learn that Major Gilbert acquired Violet from her brother, who came across her in a war zone. But we get a whole bunch of sneak peeks here. First, we get to see that Major Gilbert's brother and him have a fairly tense relationship, one in which his brother does not uphold the same traditional and reserved demeanor that it appears his brother does. There's also a line in here about how their father wouldn't approve of his brother's hair, so I'm guessing Major Gilbert was probably the obedient favored son, and then his brother retaliated by being rebellious and still holds his father in contempt. So I think it's safe to say that we can expect an episode on this a little bit later. We also get introduced to some of Violet's co-workers, who are, pretty well designed. Now, we get to see Violet's first involvement with writing the letters, and we pretty much knew how this was gonna go. And it was quite the train wreck of hilarity, if I do say so myself. Now, I do want to point out a hole in the story here, a hole which may be a hole in my understanding instead of the story. So if that's the case, then please disregard what I'm about to say. So, there's this scene where Violet writes a letter, and the lady for whom she wrote it gets very upset about this letter having been sent to her love interest. Now, maybe there's something I'm not seeing here, but wouldn't it make sense that any business and any client would want to review the letter together before sending it? I'm just saying, you know, it sounds like a good idea. Now, there's one short scene I want to comment on briefly, and it's this scene where Violet calls out Major Gilbert to a random military official, and I'm wondering, what do you think the chances are that this guy also knew Major Gilbert, and that maybe this guy had some stories to tell Violet about Major Gilbert? Not the death story, of course, but maybe just some benign business affairs that she didn't know about. I'm just curious if this scene actually led to anything. We then get some insight into one of Violet's co-workers, this pretty little glasses-eyed thing here. And the storytelling they did for her was actually pretty good, and if they decide to explore the other characters in the same way, it'll be a pretty well-developed anime. She's my second favorite character so far, with this guy being my first favorite character, but let us know in the comments section below what your favorite character is. So moving on to episode 3, this has been my favorite episode so far, and I don't know why, but I feel like the third episode of every anime is always the best one. I don't know why that is. Anyway, episode 3 takes place at this school to become an auto-memory doll, and the first thing that struck me as odd was that it was a side character that burst through the door late. And now, I don't know if you've noticed this, but usually the person that bursts into class tardy is the main character. So I thought it was pretty neat that they did it this way. And for the rest of the episode, they really do well going about and developing this character. In fact, I'd say that by the end of the episode, she's better established than Violet. Oh, and on a side note, we got this boss freaking opening theme. Now, you can pretty much expect how Violet was going to perform at this school, excelling at the mechanical tasks and failing miserably at the emotional ones. But the school, despite being the setting of the episode, was not the primary focus of this episode. You had a lot of people criticizing this episode for being too quick and saying that the schooling didn't feel long enough and that Violet graduated too quickly. And that's legitimate, I totally agree. But the main theme of the episode was not the school. Can you guess what it is? It's the very first thing that happens at the school. What's the very first thing that happens? Bam! This girl bursts through the door. This girl, her emotions, her story, that is the theme of this episode. Not the school, not Violet, but this girl here. And I think they absolutely nailed it. Her story felt real. Her emotions felt real. There's this brilliant scene where they're doing ghostwriting practice, and when asked who she wants to make out this letter to, she begins to say her brother but hesitates. And this is brilliant because it shows that her brother is the closest person to her, and yet she has no idea what to even say to him. And then we get this deep, heartfelt cathartic release, conveying the feelings she has over her parents' death. And we don't even know it at the time. We don't even know how depressing this is. And then we get to see all of these conflicting emotions she has tied with her brother and his alcoholism. But yet, with all of this going on, let's not forget how many faces of this girl are being shown. She appears strong and happy at school, displaying empathy for her classmates, and she seems like just a normal side character. And yet she has all of this other horrible stuff going on that nobody even knows about. And that's what I love about this character. She's real. This is the reality of people. The people you see at work or at school, they're only showing you what the brightest side of their personality is. They're not showing you all the dark problems they're dealing with in life, and I think we tend to forget that. I forget that all the time, and this episode reminded me of that, and that's why I thought this episode was great. But maybe you thought this episode was utter rubbish. And if you did, that's great. Let us know why in the comments section below. But if you enjoyed this video, please share, like, and subscribe for more. And as always, stay sexy, Internet Travelers.